What if a blind girl, abandoned in the depths of a deadly forest, not only survived but returned as a powerful queen? Betrayed and left to die, she found refuge among wild wolves, unlocking secrets hidden for centuries. But when she finally returns, the kingdom that cast her away will never be the same. Stay till the end to witness an unbelievable transformation that will leave you speechless. The wind howled through the trees, rustling the thick leaves of the forest as a woman trudged forward, her steps uncertain. She clutched a small bundle to her chest, her daughter, wrapped in a thin cloth, trembling not from cold but from the silence between them. The child's wide, unseeing eyes stared into nothingness, and her tiny hands reached out, searching for the comfort of the mother who no longer wished to hold her. Tears burned the woman's eyes as she knelt beside a thick tree, her heart hammering in her chest. "Forgive me," she whispered, though she knew the child would never understand why. "I have nothing to offer you. No food, no shelter, only suffering." The blind girl did not cry. She only turned her head slightly, as if sensing the sorrow in her mother's voice. Her mother hesitated for a moment, then placed the child gently on a bed of moss, her fingers lingering on the small, fragile frame. Then, with a shuddering breath, she turned and ran, disappearing into the darkness. Silence swallowed the forest once more. The blind girl lay still, listening. The forest had a voice soft, whispering, alive. She could hear the leaves shift with the wind, the distant hoot of an owl, and the rustling of unseen creatures watching from the shadows. Fear pricked her skin, but there was something else, something she did not understand yet. Then, the sound of slow, deliberate footsteps echoed through the trees. A presence loomed nearby, heavy and strong. A warm breath brushed against her face, carrying the musky scent of the wild. A deep, throaty growl vibrated through the night. She was not alone. The growl rumbled through the night, deep and cautious. The blind girl did not flinch. She could not see the beast before her, but she could feel its breath, hear the soft padding of its paws against the earth. The forest had many voices, and this one, though powerful, did not sound like a threat. The creature circled her slowly, sniffing. Its warm breath brushed against her tiny hands, and she instinctively reached out. A thick coat of fur met her fingers. She traced the texture, feeling its roughness, the movement of muscles beneath the skin. The beast did not pull away. Instead, it huffed, as if accepting her presence. Then, more sounds, lighter footsteps, hushed movements. Others were watching. More creatures had gathered in the shadows, curious about the abandoned child. The blind girl tilted her head, listening. A soft whimper came from her left, followed by the rustle of fur against the ground. A wolf pup. The realization settled in her mind like an unspoken truth. The creature before her was no ordinary beast, it was a wolf, and she was surrounded by its pack. The girl did not know what they saw in her, a threat, a burden, or something else entirely. A wet nose nudged her cheek, followed by the warmth of a massive body settling beside her. The blind girl leaned into it instinctively, feeling the steady rise and fall of the wolf's breath. The creature did not reject her. That night, as the wind whispered through the trees and the stars shone unseen above, the blind girl was not left to die. She was claimed, and the forest became her home. The forest spoke in whispers, in rustling leaves, in the distant hoot of an owl. But tonight, it sang. Ayana, named by the wolves who had taken her in, lay curled against the warmth of Zaru, the pack's eldest and strongest wolf. His slow, steady breathing comforted her as the night stretched on. She had learned to listen beyond what others could hear to the movement of the wind, the chatter of insects, the heartbeat of the earth beneath her bare feet. But this sound was different. It was a song drifting through the trees like a voice carried by the breeze. Ayana's head lifted. The melody was faint, almost like a whisper, but it stirred something deep inside her. It was neither human nor animal, yet it called to her in a way she could not explain. She pushed herself up, her fingers brushing against the cool earth as she tilted her head to listen. Zaru stirred beside her, sensing her shift in energy. He let out a low growl, warning her, but Ayana was already moving. She took slow, careful steps, her hands reaching out to feel the trees, her feet brushing against the damp forest floor. The song wove through the air, guiding her like an invisible thread. The deeper she walked into the forest, the stronger it became, filling the silence with an otherworldly beauty. Then, suddenly, it stopped. Ayana froze, her breath hitching. The air around her felt different. The trees no longer whispered. The ground beneath her felt untouched, as if no creature had ever walked here before. A soft gust of wind brushed against her face, carrying the faint scent of something ancient, something forgotten. And in that moment, she knew she had stepped into a place that did not exist on any map. She reached out, her fingers brushing against the rough bark of a tree. But something was different. The bark felt carved. Her fingertips traced the pattern's deep grooves, symbols she could not see but could feel. The markings pulsed faintly under her touch, as if the tree itself was alive in a way she had never known. Then, the wind stirred again, carrying a whisper not of the forest, but of something older. "You have found the path." Ayana stiffened. The voice was neither human nor animal, but it resonated within her like an echo from a dream. She turned her head, sensing the space around her shift. The ground beneath her feet no longer felt like the familiar earth of the forest. It was smoother, like polished stone hidden beneath the dirt. A step forward, then another. Her hands found another tree, its bark etched with the same strange markings. The air carried a faint hum, like the distant chime of unseen bells. Then she felt it. A gust of wind rushed past her, and suddenly the ground beneath her trembled. A deep, ancient sound rumbled through the forest, as if the earth itself was awakening. The space before her shifted, and though she could not see, she felt it an opening. A doorway she had unknowingly uncovered. She inhaled sharply. She was standing at the threshold of something forgotten, something hidden, and it was waiting for her to step inside. A cold breeze curled around Ayana, carrying with it a presence soft yet powerful, like unseen eyes watching her every movement. Though she could not see, she felt them. Shadows without form, voices without bodies. The whispering spirits. Their murmurs wove through the air like drifting smoke, a language older than time itself. Ayana tilted her head, straining to make sense of the sounds. It was neither words nor song, yet somehow she understood. "You have come at last." Her breath caught. She turned slightly, instinct telling her she was no longer alone. The whispers wrapped around her like a current, rising and falling as if the spirits were speaking amongst themselves, unsure of what to do with her. Then one voice emerged, clearer than the rest. "She cannot see, yet she follows the path." Another whisper filled with curiosity. "She does not fear the dark." Ayana's fingers tightened against the carved tree beside her. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice steady despite the chill creeping up her spine. A pause. Then the whispers became gentle, almost welcoming. "We are those who came before, keepers of the forgotten, protectors of the hidden kingdom." Her heart pounded at the words. A hidden kingdom. The song that had called to her, the shifting air, the strange carving soul of it led to something far greater than she could have imagined. She swallowed. "Why did you call me?" The whispers swirled, wrapping around her like a knowing touch. "Because you are the one who will bring it back to life." Ayana's breath hitched. She had spent her life feeling like she belonged nowhere. Yet here, in the heart of the unknown, the spirit spoke to her as if she had always been meant to find this place. The whispers faded, replaced by a new sensation, a warmth on her skin, a glow she could not see but could feel. Before her, something ancient stirred. The hidden kingdom was waiting, and she was ready to take the next step. Ayana stood motionless, her breath shallow as the warmth enveloped her. She could not see it, but she could feel something, shifting before her an ancient presence, awakening from its slumber. The spirits had guided her here, but now she was alone in the silence. standing at the threshold of something unknown. Slowly, she reached forward. Her fingertips met smooth, cold stone, different from the rough bark of the trees she had felt before. This surface was polished, unnatural in the heart of the wild forest. Tracing the shape, she felt grooved symbols, intricate carvings that told a story she could not read. Then, under her touch, the stone trembled. A deep hum resonated through the air, low and powerful, like the heartbeat of the earth itself. Ayana staggered back as a gust of wind rushed past her, carrying whispers of the past. The door of no eyes will open only for the one who sees without sight. Ayana's heart pounded. The door of no eyes. She ran her fingers across the carvings once more, feeling the energy pulsing beneath them. It was as if the door itself was alive, waiting for her. Taking a deep breath, she placed both hands flat against the cold surface. The hum grew stronger, vibrating through her palms, up her arms, into her very bones. Then, suddenly, a soft click. The air shifted, thick with an unseen force. The ground beneath her quivered, and with a slow, groaning sound, the stone before her began to move. Dust and ancient magic filled the air as the hidden passage revealed itself. Ayana exhaled shakily. She did not know what lay beyond this door, but she knew one thing. She was meant to step inside. The air beyond the door was thick, heavy, with something Ayana could not name. It was not just the scent of damp stone and earth. It was ancient, filled with memories long forgotten. A whisper of the past curled around her skin, unseen hands guiding her forward. She stepped carefully, her bare feet brushing against smooth stone. Unlike the rough forest floor, this path was deliberate, crafted by those who had come before. The humming had faded into silence, but the presence of something greater lingered. Ayana stretched her hands forward, feeling the walls around her. Cold stone greeted her fingertips, but just like the door, it was etched with marking symbols she could not see but could feel. The grooves told a story, one she did not yet understand. The passage narrowed, and her breath quickened. There was no turning back. The wolves who had raised her would not be able to follow. She was alone now, in a world hidden from all but those chosen to enter. Then, suddenly light. Not light in the way she had once imagined, but warmth, a shift in the air, a glow she could sense on her skin. The scent of stone faded, replaced by something alive. Grass, flowers, water. Ayana stepped forward, and the cool stone was replaced by soft earth beneath her feet. The space around her expanded, opening into something vast. She felt warmth on her face, the sun, but how? She had stepped into darkness, yet before her was life. A breeze carried a sound, distant laughter, the rustling of leaves, the faint echo of voices. This was not an abandoned place. It was a kingdom hidden beneath the world she had known, and she had just entered it. Ayana stood still, her senses overwhelmed by the world unfolding around her. The air was different here, lighter, filled with a strange energy that hummed against her skin. Though she could not see, she could feel the vastness of the space before her. It was not just an underground chamber or a hidden cave. It was something far greater. She took another step forward, the soft earth cushioning her feet. Water trickled nearby, the sound crisp and pure, flowing like a stream untouched by time. A breeze carried the scent of flowers, rich and sweet, mingled with something unfamiliar, something ancient. Then, the voices came again. Soft murmurs, distant yet growing closer. Ayana's heart pounded. She was not alone. A rustle of movement. Footsteps light, graceful, almost floating. Then a whisper spoken in the same strange language as the spirits before. But this time, she understood. She has come. Ayana turned her head toward the voice, sensing a presence before her. The air shifted as someone or something stepped closer. A warmth hovered near her, and she felt the weight of eyes studying her. Then, a soft touch. A hand, gentle yet firm, brushed against her own. Fingers traced the lines of her palm as if reading a story written in her skin. She is one of us. More murmurs rose, a mixture of wonder and uncertainty. Then a second voice calm, strong, filled with authority. "Welcome home, lost one." Ayana's breath hitched. Home. She had spent her life as an outcast, abandoned and forgotten. Yet here, in this hidden kingdom, they spoke as if she had always belonged. She did not know their faces. She did not know their world. But somehow, she knew this was where she was meant to be. Ayana stood frozen as the voices murmured around her. She could feel their presence many figures, standing at a respectful distance, observing her. Their whispers were filled with awe, curiosity, and something else. Something deeper. The one who had called her lost one stepped forward. She could sense their authority, the way the others fell silent at their presence. A hand touched her shoulder, warm, grounding. "You do not know us, but we have waited for you," the voice said. It was rich, steady, carrying the weight of something ancient. Ayana swallowed. "Waited for me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. A pause. Then the hand left her shoulder, replaced by a new sensation, a scroll being pressed into her hands. The parchment was old, rough beneath her fingertips, its edges frayed by time. Long ago, a prophecy was written, the voice continued. It spoke of a child born without sight but gifted with vision. A child who would return to the kingdom when the world had forgotten it. A child who would restore the balance between the seen and the unseen. Ayana's breath caught. A child without sight. She gripped the scroll tighter. "I don't understand," she whispered. "I don't even know this place. How can I be the one you're waiting for?" A soft breeze curled around her, carrying the faint scent of ancient wood and blooming flowers. "Because you followed the call," the voice said gently. "The hidden kingdom only reveals itself to those who belong." Ayana's heart pounded. For the first time in her life, she did not feel lost. She felt found. And as the kingdom's people guided her forward, she realized her journey had only just begun. Ayana walked carefully, guided by the steady hands of the people around her. She could hear the rustling of robes, the soft padding of feet against stone and grass. The air was thick with whispers, some close, some distant. As though the kingdom itself was alive and watching her arrival, the scroll remained clutched in her hands, its rough edges grounding her in the moment. The prophecy spoke of a child without sight but gifted with vision. Could that truly be her? She had lived her entire life believing she was abandoned, unwanted. Now, these strangers claimed she was meant to be here. As they led her forward, the scent of burning incense filled the air, earthy and sweet, mingled with something older, something sacred. Then they stopped. She must listen now, the voice of the leader said. Ayana felt a shift around her, as if the space had changed. The ground beneath her no longer felt like grass, but smooth stone. A deep, echoing silence followed a silence so powerful it pressed against her ears, like a heavy wind. Then they spoke. Not the people around her, not the spirits in the forest. The voices of the ancestors. "You have returned." The words echoed in her mind, not heard with her ears, but felt in her soul. Ayana gasped, gripping the scroll tighter. "You are the last of the bloodline," the voices continued. "The only one who can awaken what has been lost." Ayana's knees weakened. A bloodline. She had never known where she came from. Could these voices, these ancestors, be speaking of her past? She opened her mouth, but no words came. Then the voices whispered one final thing, their words curling around her like smoke. "The throne has been waiting for you." Ayana's heart pounded. A throne. Who was she before she was abandoned? And what destiny had she just stepped into? Ayana's breath came in short, gasps as the weight of the ancestors' words settled over her. "The throne has been waiting for you." How could that be? She had grown up in the wilderness, raised by wolves, forgotten by the world. How could she belong to a throne, a kingdom hidden beneath the earth? A hand touched her arm, steadying her. "Come," the leader's voice instructed gently. "You must see for yourself." Ayana allowed them to guide her forward. Though she could not see, she sensed the vastness of the space around her, the air open and heavy with something sacred. The whispers of the ancestors faded, but their presence lingered like a shadow. Her feet touched cold stone, and she felt the shift beneath her. A platform, a sacred altar. She didn't know, but she could hear the quiet breaths of the people standing around her, waiting. Then, something was placed in her hands. Smooth, solid as stone. It pulsed with warmth, a gentle thrum beneath her fingertips like a heartbeat. Ayanna inhaled sharply. This was no ordinary rock. It was alive with something ancient, something powerful. The stone of remembrance, the leader said. It carries the truth of your past. Ayanna tightened her grip, confusion clouding her thoughts. But how? I can't see. You do not need eyes to feel the truth, the voice replied. A strange energy surged from the stone, curling around her fingers and seeping into her skin. Suddenly, a flood of sensations crashed over her images she could not see, but could feel. A castle standing tall under a golden sky. A queen with a crown of silver holding a baby close to her chest. A betrayal in the night. The cries of an infant carried into the forest. Ayanna gasped, staggering back as the vision faded. Her chest tightened. That baby wasn't her. Tears burned her eyes as she clutched the stone tighter, her entire body trembling. She was not just a lost girl. She was the heir to the Hidden Kingdom, and someone had stolen her past. Ayanna stood frozen, her heart pounding against her ribs as the truth settled over her. The visions the stone had given her were not just illusions, they were memories. A lost history buried deep within her soul. She had been born here. She was the heir to the Hidden Kingdom. But someone had taken everything from her. Her fingers trembled over the smooth surface of the stone of remembrance. The images still lingered in her mind: the grand castle, the queen's embrace, the shadowy betrayal. Who had stolen her from her rightful place? And why? The leader's voice broke through her thoughts. Now you understand, they said gently. You were never abandoned. You were taken? Ayanna's throat tightened. All her life, she had believed she was unwanted, left to die in the wilderness. But the truth was far more painful. Someone had chosen to erase her from history. But why? She whispered, "Why take me away?" A murmur rippled through the gathered people, their unease palpable. Then the leader spoke again, their voice carrying the weight of the kingdom's pain. Because your birth threatened the one who rules now. Ayanna's breath hitched. There's a ruler, a false ruler, the leader corrected. A usurper who took the throne after you were stolen away. The kingdom was promised a queen who, but in your absence, another took your place. And for years, they have ruled with greed and fear, convincing the people that you were never real. A shiver ran down Ayanna's spine. Whoever had stolen her had done so to erase her existence, to ensure she would never claim what was rightfully hers. But they had failed. She had returned. A slow fire ignited within her, burning away the doubt and fear. She may have been blind, but she could see the truth now. And if someone had stolen her destiny, she was going to take it back. Ayanna clenched the stone of remembrance against her chest, her body trembling with the weight of the truth. She had been stolen, erased, and forgotten, but no more. She had returned, and she would reclaim what was hers. The murmurs of the gathered people swelled around her, a mixture of awe and uncertainty. Could she really be the queen they had been waiting for? Could she, a blind girl raised in the wilderness, challenge the one who sat on her throne? The leader stepped closer, their voice steady. You have awakened the truth, Ayanna, but knowing who you are is only the beginning. If you wish to take back what was stolen, you must be ready to fight. Ayanna's fingers tightened around the stone. Tell me what I must do. A heavy silence followed. Then the leader spoke. The false ruler King Okoi has held the throne for nearly 2 decades. He has convinced the people that the prophecy of the blind queen was a myth, that the royal bloodline ended the night you disappeared. Ayanna's jaw clenched. And what happens if they know I'm alive? The leader exhaled. Some will rejoice, some will doubt, and some will seek to destroy you. Ayanna felt the weight of their words. She had spent her life surviving in the forest, learning to listen, to sense, to adapt. She had not been raised in a palace, but she was no stranger to struggle. She squared her shoulders. Then I must make them believe. A ripple of energy moved through the gathered people. The leader let out a breath, a note of approval in their voice. Then we must prepare you. Ayana's heart pounded as she realized what was happening. She was no longer just a lost girl. She was a queen rising. And soon the kingdom would know it too. Ayana stood in the heart of the hidden kingdom, surrounded by warriors, elders, and mystics who had awaited her return. The air was thick with expectation. Though she could not see their faces, she could feel their eyes on her. Some were hopeful, others were doubtful. She had to prove herself not just to them, but to herself. The leader, whom she now knew as Elder Zuberi, stepped forward. To reclaim your throne, you must be more than the lost princess. You must become the queen this land needs. Strength alone will not win this battle. You must master all your senses. Ayana nodded. She had spent years surviving in the forest, learning how to hear, smell, and feel the world around her. But now she needed to sharpen those skills into weapons. Her training began at dawn. The warriors led her to a clearing where the ground was covered in soft grass. We fight not with sight, but with instinct, one of them said. Close your eyes, not that you need to, and listen. Ayana steadied her breath, focusing. The wind whispered through the trees. A bird's wings flapped overhead. A warrior shifted his stance, the weight of his foot pressing into the earth. Then attack. A sudden rush of movement. Ayana ducked just in time, feeling the air shift above her. A wooden staff whooshed past her ear. She turned, listening. Another step, another swing. She jumped back, but not fast enough. The tip of the staff grazed her arm. Again, the warrior said. She did not give up. 4 hours. She trained, dodging, countering, learning the rhythm of movement without ever seeing it. By nightfall, her muscles ached, her body covered in sweat and dirt. But when the warrior swung at her again, she caught the staff midair. The gathered warriors gasped. A slow smile crept onto Ayana's face. She was ready for more, and soon she would be ready to face the false king. The days stretched into weeks as Ayana's training continued. Each morning, she woke before dawn, her body sore from the previous day's trials. Yet, she never complained. She had spent years surviving in the wilderness, but now, she was learning to fight not just for herself, but for an entire kingdom. Her senses became sharper. She could hear the shift in the wind before an attack, feel the subtle vibrations in the ground when someone moved. Even without sight, she anticipated strikes before they landed, countering them with precision. The warriors who once doubted her now watched in silent respect. But fighting was only part of her preparation. Elder Zuberi led her to the Hall of Wisdom, where the kingdom's history was kept. To be a ruler, you must know your people, he told her. You must understand what was lost before you can restore it. Ayana listened as scribes read to her the stories of past. Rulers, kings, and queens who had once led with wisdom and strength. She learned about the balance the kingdom once held. Before King Okoi took the throne, the people fear him, an elder explained. He rules with greed, crushing those who resist. Many do not even know the true heir exists. Ayana clenched her fists. Then we will show them. The room fell silent. Then Elder Zuberi spoke, his voice thoughtful. A ruler's greatest power is not in battle, it is in belief. You must make the people believe in you. And to do that, you must reveal yourself. Ayana's heart pounded. Step by step, she had grown stronger. But now she faced her greatest challenge. Yet stepping into the light and claiming her place before the entire kingdom, she exhaled slowly. I am ready. And as the elders and warriors knelt before her, Ayana knew there was no turning back now. The time had come. Ayana stood at the entrance of an underground passage, her heart steady but her mind racing. For years, she had been hidden, lost in the forest, erased from history. Now, she was about to step into the world that had forgotten her and make them remember. Elder Zuberi placed a hand on her shoulder. The people must see you, hear you, feel your presence. But be prepared, not all will welcome you. Ayana nodded. I expect resistance, but I will not be silent. She had spent weeks training, sharpening her senses, learning the truth of her lineage. Now she would test all she had learned. Under the cover of night, she and a small group of loyal warriors moved through the hidden tunnels that led to the outskirts of the capital. Ayana could feel the shift in the air. As they emerged into the open, a different kind of silence, filled with distant murmurs of a city that never truly slept. The marketplace was their first stop. Elder Zuberi had told her that if she wanted to reach the people, she needed to start among them. A hush fell as they stepped into the crowded square. Though Ayana could not see the stairs, she could feel them. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Who is she? She walks with the elders. Is she nobility? She looks like. No, it's impossible. Ayana stepped forward, her voice clear and steady. People of the Hidden Kingdom, my name is Ayana. A murmur of recognition spread, but still, doubt clung to the air. She took a deep breath. You have been told that the royal bloodline ended years ago, that there was no heir left to rule. But you were lied to. Gasps, more whispers. She reached into her cloak and pulled out the stone of remembrance, holding it up for all to see. This stone carries the memories of my ancestors. It has shown me the truth that I was stolen from you as a child, that my throne was taken, that our kingdom has suffered under a false king. The silence deepened, thick with tension. Then an old woman's voice broke through. I remember the queen. I remember the baby she bore before she disappeared. Her voice trembled. She had your face. A ripple of emotion surged through the crowd. Then a shout. The prophecy. Someone cried. The blind queen has returned. Ayana stood tall as her name spread like fire through the streets. The kingdom was beginning to remember. But as the whispers of her name grew, she knew one thinking Okoye would hear of this soon, and he would not let her go unchallenged. The echoes of Ayana's name spread like wildfire through the kingdom. From the marketplace to the palace walls, whispers turned to shouts, and shouts turned to fervent belief. The blind queen had returned. The rightful heir lived. But not everyone welcomed the news. Deep within the grand palace, King Okoye sat upon a gilded throne, his fingers drumming against the armrest. His face remained emotionless, but his clenched jaw betrayed his fury. Before him, a trembling messenger knelt, his forehead pressed to the cold marble floor. Sire, it is true, the messenger stammered. A girl claiming to be the lost heir has revealed herself. The people, they believe her. The air in the throne room grew thick with tension. The courtiers and guards dared not breathe too loudly, for they had seen what happened when the king was displeased. King Okoye leaned forward, his voice dangerously soft. And who is this girl? The messenger swallowed hard. She calls herself Ayana. She carries the stone of remembrance. The elders stand with her. At this, Okoye's fingers tightened into a fist. That cursed stone, it had been locked away for years, buried with the truth he had spent a lifetime suppressing. If she wielded it, then she had the proof to challenge his rule. His mind raced. He had murdered for this throne, silenced those who dared to question him. He had rewritten history to erase the blind heir from memory. Yet now, a girl who could not even see threatened to undo everything he had built. King Okoye rose from his throne, his voice a low growl. Send my guards into the city. Find this girl. If she resists, he paused, his lips curling into a sinister smirk. Make an example of her. The court fell into an easy silence. They all knew what that meant. The hunt for Ayana had begun, and if she was not prepared, her journey would end before it truly began. Night had fallen over the kingdom, but the streets were far from silent. Heavy boots pounded against the cobblestone paths as King Okoye's guards swept through the city like a storm, their torches casting eerie shadows against the walls. Ayana, they shouted, surrender yourself to the king. The people cowered, whispering behind closed doors. Some feared for their lives, unwilling to stand against the ruler they had known for years. Others, those who had seen Ayana in the marketplace and believed in her claim, held their breath in silence, hoping she had escaped. But Ayana had not fled. She and her small band of loyal warriors remained hidden in the home of an elder named Mama Yari. The old woman had once served in the palace, long ago, before Okoy's rise to power. Now she had opened her doors to Ayana, risking her life to protect the lost queen. "The king is afraid," Mama Yari said in a hushed voice, stirring a pot over the fire. "If he were certain you were a fraud, he would not send his men like this." Ayana sat cross-legged on the floor, listening to the sounds of the guards outside. Every shout, every heavy footstep, she mapped it all in her mind. They were searching the city blindly, desperate to find her. "What do we do now?" one of her warriors, Kofi, asked. "If we stay hidden, they'll eventually find us." Ayana exhaled slowly. "We won't stay hidden," she said, "but we also won't fight on his terms." She turned her face toward Elder Zuberi. "You told me belief is the greatest power a ruler can have. If the people truly believe I am their queen, they will stand with me." Zuberi nodded. "Yes, but belief alone will not stop swords and fire." Ayana smiled faintly. "Then we give them something more than belief." She rose to her feet. "We give them hope." The plan began to take shape in her mind. She would not run. She would not cower. She would rise. And by morning, the kingdom would see that the blind queen had come to reclaim her throne. The kingdom awoke to an unexpected sight. At dawn, the people found messages painted on the walls of the marketplace, the palace gates, and the town square. Bold strokes of ink formed powerful words. "The true queen has returned. Justice is coming. Ayana lives." The whispers that had started in the shadows now erupted into open conversations. The people who once feared speaking against King Okoy now murmured with cautious hope. Could it be true? Could the blind princess they had believed to be long dead truly be alive? The guards tore down the messages in fury, but the damage had been done. The city was awake, and Ayana was ready to take her next step from her hidden refuge. Ayana listened as her warriors reported the unrest growing in the streets. Every footstep, every breath of hesitation from her allies told her the same thing: something was shifting. "The people are ready," Kofi said. "They're afraid, but they want to believe. They're just waiting for a sign." Ayana nodded. "Then we give them one." She turned toward Elder Zuberi and Mama Yari. "The king's men are searching for me." "Yes." Mama Yari frowned. "More than ever. They are questioning everyone, breaking into homes. If they find you, they won't." Ayana interrupted. "Not before I find them." She stepped forward, her confidence unwavering. "I will reveal myself, but not as a fugitive, not as a weak girl hiding in the shadows." Zuberi leaned in. "Then how?" Ayana's lips curled into a determined smile. "I will enter the palace as a queen." That night, while the guards scoured the streets, Ayana and her warriors moved, unseen through the underground, tunnels leading toward the palace. These tunnels, built by the old kings for times of war, had long been forgotten. But Mama Yari still remembered their paths. Ayana's heart pounded as she placed her hand against the cold stone walls, feeling every vibration, every shift in the air. She did not need sight to navigate these tunnels. She had spent her entire life learning to listen, to sense the world in ways others could not. When they emerged, they would be inside the palace grounds, and the final battle would begin. The air was thick with tension as Ayana and her warriors emerged from the underground tunnels, stepping into the heart of the palace grounds. The scent of burning torches mixed with the cool night air, and the distant clang of metal rang from the palace gates as guards patrolled, oblivious to the storm about to unfold within their walls. Ayana took a deep breath. This was it, the moment she had been preparing for. The kingdom had whispered her name now. They would see her rise. She turned to her warriors. "No bloodshed unless necessary," she said firmly. "We are not here to be tyrants." Guided by her heightened senses, Ayana moved swiftly through the hidden corridors of the palace, each step bringing her closer to the throne room. the seat of power that had once belonged to her family. Inside, King Okoi sat upon his stolen throne, his expression dark as his advisors whispered frantically in his ears. The reports had reached him the people were stirring. Rebellion was in the air. But he had not expected this. The doors of the throne room burst open. A hush fell over the chamber as Ayana stepped forward, her cloak billowing behind her. The torches flickered, casting long shadows across her determined face. She could not see the fear in the king's eyes, but she felt it. "Who dares?" Okoi began, rising from his throne. But his voice faltered. "The blind queen has returned." Someone gasped. The air in the room shifted. Even the guards hesitated. Ayana stepped forward, her voice calm but powerful. "You have ruled through lies and fear, Okoi, but your time is over." The king's face twisted in fury. "You think the people will follow a blind girl?" He spat. "You are nothing but a lost child." Ayana lifted the stone of remembrance high. It pulsed with a golden glow, ancient magic awakening within it. The chamber trembled, and suddenly, whispers filled the air, the voices of the past, the memories of the rightful rulers. The truth could no longer be denied. "I may have been lost," Ayana said, her voice ringing through the throne room, "but I have found my way home." The doors swung open again. This time, it was not just her warriors who entered, it was the people, men and women, young and old. All those who had whispered her name in the streets now stood before the throne, their eyes blazing with belief. "The true queen has returned." Someone cried. The guards wavered. Some lowered their weapons. Others took a step back. Okoi saw the shift. His grip on the throne tightened. "Seize her," he bellowed. But no one moved. Ayana took one last step forward. "Your reign is over. Okoi, surrender or face the judgment of the people." For the first time in his life, the false king was afraid. And as the walls of his power began to crumble around him, the kingdom finally remembered its queen. King Okoi's eyes darted around the throne room, searching for a way out. The walls that had once protected him now felt like a prison. The throne beneath him cold and unfamiliar. His guards had abandoned him. The people had turned against him. And before him stood the one person he had spent his life trying to erase, Ayana, the true queen. His breathing was ragged. "This kingdom needs a ruler who can see," he spat, his voice desperate. "A blind girl cannot lead a nation." Ayana stood tall, unshaken. "I have seen more than you ever will," she said calmly. "I have seen the pain you've inflicted, the fear you've sown, but I have also seen something greater, hope." The people behind her murmured in agreement. They had lived under Okoi's rule of tyranny for too long. Now, they were ready for change. Elder Zuberi stepped forward. "You stole this throne through treachery, Okoi," he said. "Now, it is time for you to face justice." The crowd surged forward. Okoi stumbled back, his bravado crumbling as he realized there was nowhere left to run. The very people he had oppressed now held his fate in their hands. "No, you can't do this," he shouted, but his words fell on deaf ears. The guards, once loyal to him, grabbed him by the arms and dragged him from the throne. The people erupted in cheers, their voices echoing through the palace. The false king had fallen. At sunrise, the city gathered in the palace courtyard. The golden rays of dawn bathed the kingdom as the elders stood before the crowd, preparing to crown their new ruler. Ayana knelt before them, her hands resting on the stone of remembrance. Though she could not see the faces of the people, she could feel their energy, the hope, the belief, the love. Elder Zuberi placed the crown upon her head. "By the will of the people, by the truth of your birthright, and by the strength of your heart, we declare you Queen Ayana, rightful ruler of the kingdom." The crowd erupted into thunderous applause, their cheers shaking the very foundations of the palace. The blind girl once abandoned in the forest had returned not as a lost child, but as a queen. Tears welled in Ayana's eyes as she stood, her heart full. She had been cast away, left to die in the wilderness. But the forest had become her home. The wolves had become her family. and the strength she had gained from her journey had prepared her for this moment. As she stepped forward to address her people, she spoke words that would be remembered for generations. "I was once blind to my destiny, but I have learned that sight is not found in the eyes, it is found in the heart." The people roared in agreement, chanting her name. Queen Ayana had risen, and the kingdom would never be the same again. Ayana's journey proves that even in the darkest moments, destiny has a way of leading us to greatness. She was abandoned, forgotten, and underestimated, but she rose above it all to claim her rightful place as queen. What did you learn from her incredible transformation? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this story and want more thrilling African folktales, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Turn on notifications so you never miss an epic story like this. Who knows? The next tale might be even more mind-blowing. See you in the next one. Love you all.